And I remember in one case, I was like 8 years old, and this lady was taking care of me. And she would give my food to her kids, and she would be like, it's because you're just a guest in my house.
Damn.
And I'm taking care of you because your mom is paying me. But that doesn't mean that you're my kid, and I'm not going to treat you right. Like, her kids could watch TV. I had to be sitting down, and I had to take it because if I were to tell my mom, I would be bothering her. My mom can't be dealing with this. She's going to stress over who's taking care of me, like who's watching over me while she's working, because she has family in Mexico. She needs to send money over there. Like, I had another brother and sister that were over there, like, and I knew the lady wasn't a U.S. citizen.
Damn.
Yeah, and she tried to take my juice again to give it to her kids, and I told her, I was like, if you don't treat me right, I'm gonna call ICE, and they're gonna take you.
Damn, and she took
because I was like, I'm a U.S. citizen. Right there.
What's up, everybody? This is the Untapped Potential Podcast, and today we're tapping in with Pricilla Creates. She is a photographer from the Tri-Cities area. What's going on, Pricilla? How you doing?
Hi, guys. I'm doing good. Thank you. Enjoying the rain. Definitely much needed. I love this weather.
You just made that drive from Tri-Cities, too.
I know. And it's crazy because I was still seeing the sun, and I was really upset because I was like, I came, for the rain.
Right.
Like, I came for the gloomy weather.
Was it sunny out there today?
Yes, it actually was. Yeah, and yesterday was like 88 degrees. So
Wow.
I was like, I just need Seattle right now. I just really need it. A lot of people are like, oh, it's because that's ugly weather, gloomy weather. And for me, it's like the most inspirational like weather ever.
Agree.
Like to me, I'm like, what?
You get those
beautiful
introspective
weather.
vibes.
Yeah, I'm like, what? Like, you don't feel alive right now? Like, it's gloomy out there, Plus, it's like perfect lighting too. So.
No, we appreciate it. We appreciate it that you made this whole trip just for us. So
honestly, this has been a process in the making for what, like 5-6 months, maybe?
Yeah, it has. Perfect timing though, for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of great
We've
news
been
in
talking
this
about it. We've had conversations over the phone, pre-interviews, so we're excited.
I'm excited too. Thank you guys again for having me.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and there's a lot that you have going on, a lot that you have planned. But before we dive into your projects and what you do now, let's start at the beginning. Who is Pricilla Creates? Where do you come from?
Pricilla Creates, a Mexican photographer. If there's something that I ever want to be known as, that I come, representing the Mexican culture for sure. And typically that means being inside the box. There's only certain limits, but I think that also means breaking those limits. Creating that box into something different. And I think that's where the part like Pricilla Creates came to be. In Tri-Cities, you only see a certain type of photography, which is catered more to like weddings and like couples and family photography. And I still do here and there a couple of that. But when I started, it was a little bit more, I wanted more, I practiced every single day, but there was a moment where like my photography, I love fashion as well. And I wanted to bring the Mexican culture and fashion together and let people know here in the U.S. that like it adds value, it's different. So I think that's where like the editorial side of like my photography came to be. I lived in Mexico for six years of my life. So I was born here in the U.S. and then I left when I was 9. Very big culture shock.
Right.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that because a lot of people experience the opposite.
That's true.
They come here, when they're a little bit older from Mexico or a different country, and then they assimilate to American culture. But you were here in American culture assimilating to Mexican culture.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that, reverse culture shock, I guess.
The biggest things that stood out for me, I remember one of the biggest things is that I was going in like October. And I was so excited to like wear a Halloween costume. And my mom was like, oh, well, we don't celebrate Halloween here. We celebrate Dia de Muertos. And like we put up an ofrenda, for the dead. And like we celebrate, And I was like, what? So I don't get to wear like a Halloween costume? Like, what do you mean, So that was like one of the things that where I started like, your family, like my mom, at least, she tried to give me the best that she could, reminding me of my roots. Spanish was still my first language at home. Then I learned English in school, but like, it's not until you live it that you understand and you recognize that it's like, it's different. It is a third world country. There is traditions and customs that are different. Something also that I saw is that like, they would charge you to go to the bathroom or like
Oh,
to drink
yeah.
water.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here, like, you just go to Walmart, the bathroom is like, you know, like any store, like, how would they not have a bathroom
You
over
feel
there?
offended almost if they charge you.
Yeah. And I was like, Mom, they like charge you here to go to the bathroom. Like, they're selling me paper, you know?
Right.
And like, she was like, yeah, you know, people here have to make a living, like, as whatever they can. And if that means that they have to take care of the bathroom and they give you a piece of paper, then they'll do that, you know? And I was like, what? Why? Like, why can't they just like give money, you know? Like, why can't they just get help? And I was 9 years old at the time. So there was a lot of things that I didn't understand. And then Christmas as well was one of those big things where I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know if I remember I was so stressed because I didn't know if Santa Claus knew that I was in Mexico. And he was going to, if he was going to hit my home, you know, all the way over here. I was like, I'm all the, I was like, all the way over here. Yes. And I was like, no, it's because Santa Claus stays in the U.S., you know. Here it's like El Niño Jesús and Las Posadas and like a little bit...
Los Reyes.
Yeah, Los Reyes Magos and La Familia, you know. And you just go and you celebrate with people with posadas and stuff like that instead of like Santa Claus. And I was like, oh, I was so bummed. Again, I was 9. Okay, so right. I cared about Santa Claus. So those were like big things in traditions and customs that I was just like, oh my gosh, you know, like I kind of felt like things were a little bit different. And then I remember I was like around the age of 12, which that's when I definitely realized that it was like a whole different. We at the time my mom had a partner and he was a forest engineer. So we would go up to the mountains a lot. Allá se conoce como la sierra. And people still traded their goods. They didn't manage pesos, money at all. And the people there that were receiving us, they had made caldo de pollo for us.
Right.
And I remember I was eating it and it had no seasoning. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, this does not taste good at all. And I told my mom, I was like, I don't want to eat it. And she's like, no, you should eat it, you know, like people made this for us. And I was like, Mom, it doesn't have any salt, you know, like, this is a little tough. And the people in the house, they had their kids as well. And they saw that I wasn't eating it. And they were like, are you not going to eat your chicken? And I was like, no, like, I didn't really like it, you know, I was younger as well. Right. They were like, can we have it? Can we share it? Because we are only eating meat because you guys are here.
Ooh,
because we don't usually eat meat.
That's
wow.
You know, and in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh.
It was like a big deal for them.
Yeah, 100%. They were like, we usually just eat like if we're at good, like eggs, you know. Wow. But if not, it's just beans and cheese and queso fresco, tortillas hechas a mano, and not even that, like not a lot of tortillas. Like they had to like leave them there soaking so they can get full. Like
a very low protein diet.
Yes.
Right.
Holy cow.
And I remember those kids. I will never forget them. And that
moment, did it hit you though, or did you realize that like years later?
No. In that moment, in that moment, I was like, wow, you know, like, and since that moment, I felt like that was the seed that was planted for me to be wanting to give back. Yeah. You know, that no kid had to say that. That they had to, you know, have guests to know what chicken was. And they didn't go to school. Their school was going to pastorear los chivos, which is to go see the sheep, you know, that they ate and bring them back. They were complimenting my shoes because they didn't have any.
Damn.
Yeah.
So when you were in school, did people, I mean, obviously you're living there, so they knew that you lived there, you went to school there. But did they have trouble accepting you because you came from the States?
100%. Yeah, they would always tell me to go back from where I was from. And
wow.
Yeah.
Would they call you names?
Yeah, they would just tell me like, pinche gringa, regresaste donde veniste, you know?
Damn.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm as Mexican as you are.
and you experienced the opposite of that here too. They're like, 100%. Hey, go back to Mexico.
Yeah.
And there's no place you feel like where you're accepted.
Yeah, and I had a certain level of English, you know, so when like people needed help, like I would try to help them. But obviously at that age I was like very young, so I didn't know how to come across a helping way without like bragging about the fact that I knew English, you know, to a certain extent, or different types of like food or drinks, or that I could just go buy myself whatever, you know. It's school also was a big culture shock because over there you have to wear a uniform. And then
which we take for granted here.
Yes. That you could just wear whatever you want. Yeah, exactly. You have to wear a uniform. And school was tough. They don't let you like take little quizzes so you can pass grade. You know, you didn't do certain points. Like you would repeat the year. That's fine for them. You know, the teachers were like okay with that. And then during lunch, I remember the very first time that I had lunch in school over there, they closed the gates there. And whoever's taking you lunch has to like reach out and like give it to you through the gate. Yeah.
Interesting.
Why?
Because of I don't know if it was because a lot of kids like skip school.
Oh, that makes sense.
So they had like a guard there, and that you could only sometimes they would like the parents come in, you know, and like but only parents can get out. Like no kids, you know, like school is school. Like you're not there to be with your mom or your dad. Like you're there if they're gonna bring you food, then you can just grab your food and eat. Like that's pretty much, you know, what you're doing. So when I studied over there, I went to quinto de primaria y sexto de primaria también. I also studied like my whole middle school there, which is secundaria.
So like 5th and 6th grade and then middle school, right?
Yes. Yeah. Because over there, elementary is not like till 5th, it's till 6th.
Oh, okay. So you got older kids there.
Yeah. And then in 6th, they always choose 6 people out of the 6th. Like they have como sexto A, sexto B, sexto C. By sections, you know, like different they're called aulas over there, but they're like classrooms. And I remember they choose 6 people that are the smartest in the school, and they get to do honores a la bandera, and they're the they do like I don't know if you guys have ever seen when they do honores a la bandera, they do like the himno nacional, and they're a part of like you just have the 6 more important roles. You line up. It's almost like military stuff. You like line up 4 people in the front, 2 people in the back, and then the person that is holding the bandera gets like the highest score. Like it's like honoring, you know, that like you have the highest score in the school, so you get to like carry the Mexican flag with you.
Right.
Each little school does that every Monday. And then there's a captain that like gives directions, and like they do like a whole recorrido de la bandera, and then people like salute the flag, el himno nacional mexicano, and stuff like that. And I remember in 6th grade, I was able to be the captain of like of the escolta, así les llaman.
So you were holding the flag?
I know, I was giving the orders. So it's
gotcha.
like the person that holds the flag, and then the 2nd grade gives like the orders.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I was able to. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, what is this? You know, like.
It sounds almost like coming from like an
Militaristic.
American like perspective, right? Like it sounds almost like indoctrination.
Yeah.
But
a
I'm
little
Mexican,
bit.
so like I do have like a huge Mexican pride, and that just comes with my culture. But I
100%.
didn't understand why. But now that you're explaining that, that's crazy. It's like it's built into the system there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. They do that when you're even in kinder.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
like they have the
crazy.
little kids, but the smartest 6 kids that are in like the 3rd level, they get to be in the escolta. And that's like a pride and joy for your family.
That's crazy because it makes sense though, because you put the kids that are the smartest to be holding the flag and be the most patriotic, and everybody else traditionally, or I mean, it just makes sense to look up to the smartest kids in the class. So everybody else, because they're doing these patriotic things, everybody else is patriotic because the smartest kids are doing that.
Yeah, and
That's
it's
crazy.
actually really amazing because you would get a whole like, se llaman honores a la bandera.
Yeah.
So it was like a whole like 30 minutes of like before you would go to class every week. Usually it would be on a Monday, maybe depending on the state, it may vary, but you would learn fun facts about the state, whatever your state you live in, or about Mexico, or like what was being celebrated, what tradition. And then you had to like sing the himno nacional mexicano, you know, and like stuff like that. So it was very, very different. And it felt like such an honor, you know, to do that, which is something that like, I only went to elementary here, but it was still like very different. I was like, wow, you know, like that's awesome that they take pride in like they're prideful and like that they're Mexican. Like we're gonna let everybody else know that, you know.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so then fast forward, you ended up coming back to the States later on.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
You were older. You were in high school, right? At
Yes,
that
I was
time?
15
Oh,
at
wow.
the time. Yes. My mom. I have a brother and a sister over there, and out of them 3, I am the only one that has papers I'm a U.S. citizen. My mom is not. So she had to stay. So it was the first time that I came back alone.
Oh, wow. So you didn't even have your parents. Who'd you stay with?
At first, I was staying with my mom's friend. And then I met my dad after 15 years.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he took me in with his family and stuff. He was already remarried and with his other kids. But yeah, I came back and it was another culture shock again, because now I didn't speak proper English.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So when you went to Mexico, kids made fun of you presumably because you didn't speak perfect Spanish.
Yes.
And now you've taken all that time and all that energy to perfect your Spanish, and now you can't speak perfect English. You kind of lose a little bit.
Yeah,
of that.
my pronunciation, it was good. It was decent. It got by, but it wasn't the best. When I was in high school, we were learning like science and like the terminology was different and stuff like that. And people, like kids more than anything, like my classmates, they would be like, oh my gosh, like that's not how you say that. But they would be like, es que no sabo. And I was like, okay, that's not what you say in Spanish. Like I don't speak proper English, but you don't speak proper Spanish.
You're like, I'm not taking advice from a no sabo.
I was like, you should be more embarrassed than I am. Because at the end of the day, like, you come from Mexican parents,
right.
So don't you dare correct me. Like, what do you know? Yeah.
That's tough though, because you were kind of being thrown around on both sides.
Yeah.
And not only that, like you're kind of not accepted by either party. So you almost feel like an outsider no matter where you go.
100%. I battled with that for a little bit because my character is very, this is who I am. And I could care less who's accepted or not, Right. So I was like, I'm a U.S. citizen, but I'm Mexican. So like in either way, like I never identified as what people called me. I knew exactly where I came from and I knew exactly who I was. And I knew my rights. Like it was like that. It makes you build thick skin, especially because while I was over here during like elementary school, like my mom was an immigrant, she worked in the fields. Like I had to make sure that I defended my family because my mom she didn't speak English, like I remember I was like an A+ student and like there was open house all the time. And they always wanted to see my mom so they could let her know that I was an A+ student. And I was like, my mom's not going to show up. Like she has to work.
That work, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for me it was like that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I should be an A+ student. My mom was like killing herself in the fields. Like there's pressure since you're younger to have everything. Yeah, exactly.
Diving deeper into that though, because I could 100% relate to that. Getting good grades and just telling my mom, "Hey mom, I got an A." It's like she doesn't even know what that means. She's like, "Okay, está bien, mijo."
Yeah.
Like, keep doing that though. Like that's expected. How did you deal with that? Because I think for me personally, like sometimes I would get good grades and I'd feel kind of sad sometimes. But at the same time, I'd be like, you know what? She's working. She's grinding. I'd justify it. How did you deal with it personally?
I didn't want to bother my mom if I didn't have to. Even if that meant like I had to do my homework alone. There was a lot of like, again, activities where like usually in the American culture, like your parents are there. Their moms, I would remember seeing all my classmates, their mom were like proud and loud, like, yes, like that's my son or that's my daughter. And if I didn't have to bother my mom, it was just there. If I was an A+ student, again, that was just like, it was expected of me, like right. My mom is already killing herself to make money to provide for the house. Like, and it's interesting because a lot of people don't know, but like as a kid, you understand that. Mm-hmm. Like, my mom thought that I was just a little girl and like I didn't understand it, but I knew. Mm-hmm. I knew that she was up since like sunrise and that I had to go to babysitters, and she didn't even know. Like one of the things that was crazy is that I remember she would leave me with like babysitters, and those people didn't always treat you right. They didn't always take care of you, but she couldn't do anything because she was an immigrant. She didn't know. She didn't have friends to trust, people. And it's a blessing if you do. And I remember in one case, I was like 8 years old, and this lady was taking care of me, and she would always because my mom would pack lunch for me. She would always give my food to her kids because she had kids as well. She would take care of me. My mom would pay her, but she had kids, and she would give my food to her kids, and she would be like, "It's because you're just a guest in my house, and I'm taking care of you because your mom is paying me, but that doesn't mean that you're my kid, and I'm not gonna treat you right." Like like her kids could watch TV. I had to be sitting down, and I had to take it because if I were to tell my mom, I would be bothering her. That's how I saw it, at that age. Like, my mom can't be dealing with this, she's going to stress over who's taking care of me, like, who's watching over me while she's working. Because she has family in Mexico. She needs to send money over there. Like, I had another brother and sister that were over there. Like, I couldn't be giving her, you know, and like something that to another worry pretty much. And this lady kept like doing it, and she would always like cuss me out and like tell me that my mom didn't love me, and that's why she wasn't with me. And I remember one time I was talking like with my classmates, and they were like, yeah, like immigrants, like the ICE can take them, you know, if they're not like U.S. citizens and stuff like that. And I knew the lady wasn't a U.S. citizen.
Damn.
Yeah, and she tried to take my juice again to give it to her kids. And I told her, I was like, if you don't treat me right, I'm gonna call ICE and they're gonna take you.
Damn, and she
Cause
took
I,
that.
yeah, because I was like, I'm a U.S. citizen.
Right there.
I was
hey,
like,
yo, clip that.
Yeah, I was like, I'm a U.S. citizen, you know. I was like, and I will make sure that they take you.
Damn.
I was 8 year old.
So you were well fed after that.
Yeah, and she gave me my lunch every day, and she would let me watch movies with her kids and like play with toys. But imagine at 8 years old having to
make those kinds of threats and like just being aware. It sounds like you're a very self-aware 8-year-old.
You have to. You know, with Mexican parents,
sure.
people, not just with Mexican parents, but when you're a minority, you have to. It's just embedded in you to like attack.
You grow up fast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You have to mature in order to survive.
100%. And sometimes there's a lot of cases of people that had to be like the dad or the mom, you know, to their younger siblings. I didn't have any younger siblings, but if I would have, that would have to have been me.
Yeah,
you know,
and that's pretty much how it goes. In a sense, too, like you may not have had younger siblings, but in a sense, you got to be your own dad, your own mom sometimes. Because, you know, in my case, you know, I grew up with a single mom, but my mom would be at work all the time.
Same.
Dad was never there,
Right.
so I had to be my own dad all the time, and my own mom some of the time when she was gone.
100%.
Babysitters weren't doing their jobs, right? So
the whole like tucking you into bed, that was. I never knew that. Never knew what tucking into bed, your parents helping you with like homework that they didn't even understand, because my mom only went to like 4th grade of elementary school.
Right. Yep.
You know, trying like before I was like so frustrated, but like now growing up and seeing like she only gave me her best at the time. You know, her best was not enough, but she gave me her best.
Yeah. And growing up, it's like you have to realize that you know, some of the trauma or some of the hard times in your life may have came from your parents, but you could kind of blame them, but at the same time you have to accept they did their best. They didn't come from a place of malice or a place of wrongdoing.
They only gave you what they knew.
Yeah.
You know, I remember my mom always telling me like stories of like my grandma beating her for no reason.
Damn.
Yeah, or because she didn't serve a man. You know, like that machismo was still up to like like my mom's generation. And that's why she also came to the United States, because she would work while she was pregnant with my sister, and my grandpa would cash out her checks and give her no money.
Wow.
Because parents could do that over there. Yeah.
Wow.
So she didn't know how to like, you know, feed her own kids.
And so you're dealing with all these, you know, complicated and very kind of traumatic like family dynamics that come with just, you know, the immigrant culture, Mexican culture.
100.
And you're back in the U.S., you're in high school. Where does photography start for you?
Photography starts for me when I started going to church, a local church there called Hungry Gen. I was always a person that like creativity really never like, I thought that it wasn't for me. You know, I didn't really see myself in a creative career or anything like that. But I started doing social media for the church, you know, really liked it. Saw a lot of like potential in it. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed like just being able to create anything and just being able to show other people, you know, what's going on. Because for me, I'm very faith oriented, you know. I will always admit that everything that has happened in my life is like God given, you know. Right. So I was able to find that relationship with God and finally come at peace with like my upbringing, with my childhood, with my future, with things that I couldn't control and stuff like that. Started serving at my church. They allowed me to grab a camera, and then I just would go outside and just like shoot, and it was enjoyable. It was nice. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is super cool, you know. And then a situation happened. I couldn't use the camera anymore, and then God blessed me through another photographer to use a camera. And that's where I was like, okay, like this is from God, you know, like I'm supposed to be doing this. Like things don't just happen. It doesn't matter how hard you want them. Like if
Right.
God, I personally believe if God doesn't want them for you, then it's just not gonna happen, you know. But like I knew it was like God's confirmation of like this is where you should go. But anyways, I continued to doing photography, learning through amazing photographers like Eder, and then I also connected with Joel, and just other photographers in the community and stuff. Shooting again a little bit more of fashion, and still being proud that I was, you know, Mexican, and that the people I was working with were like also their upbringing was like, you know, hard, and that we're still trying. We're still, nobody has it figured out, you know, but that we're still trying to make it. Then all of a sudden, like everything just started lining up in businesses, you know, Drip being one of the first ones, which I'm super grateful for, you know, just connecting with that vision of like, you know, we want to start a business, but we want to make sure that people know that we're Mexican,
Right.
you know, and that we want to give back to our culture, that we're not denying that at all. If anything, that's something that adds value to our business. And then just projects like that, I started shooting with like more of the street style as well. For example, one of the stores was Getting Where You Fit In, you know, and they have a big like online presence. And I remember like usually in that, now a little bit more, but in this, we're talking about a year ago, you don't really see a lot of women of color shooting, you know, with big brands or stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's just, you're more in a box, as I said. And I was like, okay, you know what? If people are going to put me in a box, then I'm going to make the best fucking box out there. You know, I'm going to let them know that I'm going to build some fucking windows for myself, and that it's possible that like the next person that comes after me doesn't have it as tough as I do, because like they can dream big, you know?
That's powerful.
Yeah. And so you've made an effort to have cultural representation in your photography. And I want to touch on something that you talked about just a little bit earlier, and that's kind of your experience with May. So we're going a little bit more fast forward. But so you did photography for the brand Dripped and some other brands. You've also done photography for food as well, Casa Rosita.
Yeah.
And now your focus is more on, I guess, well, I'll let you kind of explain what your new focus is based off of your experience.
Yeah, so when I went to Mexico in May of this year, 2021, I was over there, and just everywhere that I looked at, it was the first time that I went to Mexico with, like, I could say an artistic eye. I had been there before, you know, I had lived there before, but this time everything just looked different. You know, everywhere that I looked was powerful. There was a story, the streets, you know, just the people, the look in people's eyes, just everywhere was worthy of the world seeing. And that beauty in the struggle, you know, because there's still struggle. Like the story that I talked about earlier with the kid, that's still happening till this day.
Yeah.
You know, there's still kids out there with no shoes, that they don't know what school is, that they don't know what eating chicken is. You know, that's still there. And I was there with family because I had not seen my mom, and that's something that's also tough as well. Sometimes you come here and you don't have family. Yeah, you know, like your parents are over there, they're still struggling as well. You're struggling here to survive. They're struggling over there to survive, but you still have that pressure to like be a help, you know, to your parents. Like, so also going with that, you know, it was the very first time where I was able to give my mom a lifestyle for 2 weeks that she had never seen. You know, which was not checking prices, not having to have that worry of like, well, are we going to be able to eat tomorrow? Good, you know, like in my family and stuff like that, which is very, very rewarding. I think anyone that has been in that position will agree that it's a point of success for sure for any kid that has immigrant parents. Yeah. To give back to your parents is just like, man, you know. And I also saw how so many people needed help. And I started taking pictures and just sharing a little bit on my stories. But it had always been in my heart to some way give back to my culture, but specifically back in Mexico. Not just here in the U.S., you know, but like back in where the help is. I don't want to say like needed more, but in some way, yes, because it's still a third world country. You know, they're still just trying to like, I'm not saying build, we're talking food, right? You know, to survive, like to live another day.
And there's not as much infrastructure as there is here in the U.S. In the U.S., you know, certain people are able to apply for programs, and there's help. There's community outreach over there. There's not
there's still a lot of work to be done here as well. And I know God has that covered with the people, you know, he is bringing up people that are doing that, Drip being one of those brands, you know. But I went over there and I was like, man, like this is not being seen as much, you know. They're trying, they're fighting, but like, and I just never understood why I went to Mexico, why I lived in Mexico for so long when I could have just been living here. You know, I always wondered that in my heart. Like, why did I have to see all this poverty, all this, like, pain, if, like, you know? But that always kept in my heart. And until this time that I went back, I was like, okay, you know what? I am going to get these people's art and sell it in the U.S. and pay them double than what they sell. I'm going to take pictures of the food, of the culture, of the music, anything that evolves around that, stories, like people that are trying, you know, they're just to make a day, one more day. And if in any way my photography can help, like I'm going to do that, you know? And that was the point where like my photography found its purpose. So yes, fashion still is very important, you know, because it's still a part of a culture, is heavy. Right. You don't see a lot of representation of the Mexican culture within fashion, but also art, you know, in any way, like tequileras, mezcalerias, like, man, there's just so much. It's just so rich. And there has to be people that put other people's interest before ourselves and go and capture all of that. Because, you know, people are more willing to give to something that they know, that they see, people that they trust, you know. But like, if you don't have that influence, if you don't have that outreach, how are you supposed to, you know, get that help, get that support? Right. So I saw that and I was like, there's a reason why I was born in the U.S. I came to Mexico, went back to the U.S., but I have the opportunity to come and go whenever I want to. And to be able to support, you know, like to be able to give back to kids, to elderly people, to families that are just trying to, again, make a day means. You know, when I was over there in the mercado, as I was telling you guys earlier, like it was so amazing to see. It definitely hurt my heart, but like still like that beauty again in the struggle, because as Mexicans, that's who we are. We see beauty in the struggle. We build in darkness, you know? Right. And just to see that, like, how there was like such a young generation. And I took a picture of a little girl. And you guys can put it up if you guys want to.
Yeah. Let's put up her Instagram page.
So this is Pricilla.creates. This is Priscilla's Instagram page. You can find her on this link here, but let me go scroll down.
It's in the black and white pictures.
Oh, there it is. Perfect.
Yeah.
We'll zoom in there.
Though, like, such a young generation. Even the picture before, that's a mother feeding her baby water.
Wow.
That they had to give her because her baby was thirsty. And she's selling stuff.
Yeah, she's there working.
And it was hot. It was super hot. And I had asked them since what time they had been there. They had been setting up since 4 a.m.
Wow.
And they don't leave until 7, 8 p.m. until they sell to eat the next day. You know? And
that's every day.
Yeah. And
that's
even
not just weekdays.
Yeah, the little girl, you know, on that side. And then you see that young generation. The little girl is there with her mom selling. And then you see the grandmas still there. You know? Elderly people as well. It's a whole generation. Exactly.
That's powerful.
Wow, man.
Wow.
And so I love the fact that you're using your talents to create a platform for these people. That's, I think, one of the most amazing things that I've heard anybody do. And so tell us a little bit about more of the process and how you envision bringing that to life.
Yeah. So my plans are to, probably by the time this is airing, I'm already going to be in Mexico. Yep. So to be able to take these pictures, you know, a little bit, because those pictures took like 10 minutes, sadly. I was there with just family and I just saw everything and I just had to like in some way capture it for myself as well as a reminder of why I'm doing what I'm doing and the people that need that help. But I was like, I have to come back and in some way, like with my photography, help these people, bring awareness, you know, to their businesses, to the culture, to their stories. So my plans are to make this through books and selling these books, you know, and giving that percentage back to the people that need it, to their businesses, so they don't have to be a full day there to eat.
Yeah. That's amazing.
You know, and there's a lot of people, there's a lot of tourists, you know, that go and they buy their stuff at half price and they sell it here like at double.
Right.
But the vendors don't see that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The middle person, the middle person is the one that gets all the profit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the artist
is kind of exploiting.
Yeah,
100%. Right? Because they're the ones that are working to create these products,
and not only that,
they're getting paid this small percentage, and then their actual products are worth so much more.
100%.
Right?
Yeah, I want to zoom in on one of the products that they were selling. I think, in the background here, if you can tell.
Huaraches, yeah.
Huaraches, yeah. So, I mean, they must make these by hand or they get them from somewhere. But yeah,
everything there made by hand. We're talking about like leather backpacks, so many stuff that you would just be like, oh my gosh, you know, like how is this possible? Yeah. And then when I was there this time and I was like, okay, I understand why creativity comes easy to me. You know, it's because my culture is creative. It has been put in a box and it had to build windows. It had to decorate the box and make people know that like, it's okay if you put me in a box. That doesn't mean I'm going to stay there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and just being in those streets and knowing that, I was like, wow, people need to see this. There's a lot of also like, you know, the generation that's coming that they have Mexican parents and those traditions and that culture is getting lost a little bit. They don't understand no longer what that means, what that looks like. You know, they identify maybe more with the American culture, but there's so much to be proud of.
And not only that, the struggles to be put in a position where they're at today.
Yeah.
I mean, you've experienced that firsthand by just, you know, traveling back and forth and experiencing those two different lives. Right. Whereas like us, you know, being first generation, our parents were immigrants, but we didn't necessarily see the struggle that they grew up with.
100%. And when I was over there and I was able to take some pictures, you know, some people would still message me and be like, oh my gosh, my parents are from there. You know, like that's so awesome. Like I can't wait to like go there because they've never been. And then there's this whole like, I want to say like misconception of like, oh, Mexico is so dangerous. Don't go back.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You know, you're going to get killed. And there's places I will agree where like, you know, it's a little bit, you have to take precautions, but it's a misconception. Mexico is so beautiful and it has so much to give. And it's just so rich that anyone that can should run and go experience that.
Oh, yeah.
There's just like.
Yeah, no, I agree. One thing I really like about when I go to Mexico is everybody's so people-oriented and family-oriented and super respectful. And I think that's something that's kind of missing in American culture, or that I can't say I see it to the same level out here.
And so like giving,
yeah,
you know, like it's people that don't have. But I remember in my grandpa's house and my grandma's house, like they are making it day by day. But if someone would be from the mountains walking down because they don't have cars, they would be walking down. We're talking about 4 or 5 hours to travel to a nearest store to just buy a certain like percentage of like food, you know, and take it back and then have to do that. Like my grandparents could barely afford their food, but they would still share un taco. And they always told me, el taco nunca se le niega a nadie. You know, en esta casa se le da a todos. Donde comen 3, comen 4, donde comen 4, comen 5. You know, and it's people that don't have. Mm-hmm. But they're still giving. That's just who we are, you know, like, and that's where grandparents are.
And I think that part of our culture, I think that's the part that I hope we never lose.
100%.
Because in the U.S., it's very different. One thing I noticed here is it's very individualistic. Like everybody wants to make it to the top by themselves. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm going to make it. I'm going to be the best. I'm going to be number one. But in Mexico, it's more like we're going to make it. We're going to do it as a family, as a collective. You see people living in a house, you know, 3, 4 generations living in one house because they want to help, they want to save up, they want to make the most out of their resources. And out here, it's kind of more like consumer culture. Like, I'm going to make the most. Like, we need 3 cars, 4 cars, 5 cars. Mm-hmm. I think that's like a big difference and one thing that I hope we never lose from Mexican culture.
100%. Yeah. It has a lot to, it's just, hopefully we never lose that we're giving even if we don't have.
Yeah.
You know, because you just never know if that person needs it more than you.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you're a prime example of someone who's giving back. I think what you're doing with selling the book is it's not only telling the story of people there, but it's also giving back via the proceeds that come from the book. So you're giving back in more than just one way. And I think that's very powerful. I think more people can learn from that too.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. I thank God for using me, you know, because I will not take credit. This is not just by myself. You know, it just didn't just naturally come to my heart. You know, like I definitely feel like I'm a vessel.
Right.
And I feel like more people should say yes to God and to allow their businesses to head towards there and to give back to people. Because again, that's, if you have a business, hopefully that's your purpose. You know, that you don't just make it to the top, that you're taking other people with you, and that you're letting other people know that it's possible. Right. Dream big. It like that someone before you did it, and that you can use that, and just hold on to that as tight as you can, you know, because it's possible. Yeah. You know, and it's not just, and then it's your whole family that you're affecting. And then sooner or later it'll be a whole generation that will know that it's possible. Even in Mexico, you know, maybe with these books, who knows, maybe we can build like schools, you know, like people that will know that not just choosing violence is their only option to make money, that they can have a career and that they will have jobs, and that they don't need to risk their lives crossing to the U.S. to make money and to survive, to leave their families behind, kids, wives, parents, you know, that like they have something to offer there, that they can make it there, that they should be proud of the fact. You know, when I would go back, so many people would tell me like, oh, you're so lucky that you can go back to the U.S. and like live, you know, that dream, the American dream. Like the American dream is a struggle too.
Right.
You know,
it's not greener on the other side.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's, I mean, you work every day. It's like that meme that's going around that says like, I work to pay the bills in my house, but like I'm pretty much at work every day. You know, like I hardly like enjoy my house.
Don't even live at the house.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Like it's just so ironic for some people. A lot of people that like, you know, again come from the minority side. Like you don't. It's not as, definitely we have more resources, which I'm grateful for. But I think giving back within itself, you know, hopefully more people are able to see that and do that, because there's also a lot of work to be done over there, a lot of help that is needed, and a lot more selflessness.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, well, thank you so much, Pricilla. Thanks for making the drive again from Tri-Cities to share your story. You know, you're doing a lot of great things for the community. Just you sharing your story here, I think, is very important, because these are stories that aren't really shared that often. There's not a lot of, you know, representation, I think, in the media of people that come from, you know, Mexican and immigrant cultures.
No, and I would encourage, just you
being here is very powerful in itself.
I would encourage anyone out there that has a story that think that it's not powerful, or anyone that thinks that just because they come from immigrant parents that work in the fields, or, you know, that be proud and loud about that. That adds to you. It doesn't take away from you. You know, it doesn't matter who you're standing against. It doesn't matter if this person has more education. It does not matter. Like that makes you more special. Like, and it's not about who's better or who's not. It's just about knowing your value, and that adds value to you. Like, be proud about that. You know, like if anything, exactly. Like that's so beautiful. Who gets to say that?
Right. You're powerful in your own right. There's not a lot of people who could say that they come from that, you know.
There's not a lot of people that can even say that they have a culture, that they have traditions.
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
You know, that they have another language. Yeah. Like that they have foods that represent, you know, like all of that. Like, man, working at Casa Rosita has helped me so much to understand that the Mexican cuisine.
Hey, shout out Casa Rosita.
Honestly, yes. Shout out to them. They have... They're like family to me, definitely, and they have helped me also see that through food. You know, like there's so much to speak about. You know, they're also making a movement through that, and again, that's what it's about, to support businesses and to create more businesses that are gonna be proud and loud about what they're doing and not shameful. You know, because anyone can be like, oh, well, that's just a taco truck. No, it's not. It's not. You know, we're serving you Mexico.
100%.
Yeah.
No, well, once again, Pricilla, thank you so much. For everybody tuning in, please don't forget to follow Pricilla at Pricilla.creates. And Pricilla, where can people buy your book once it comes out?
I will be posting all the details on my page. So if people want to see that, I am still working on the details of that. About that. Might drop a book, might drop a series.
Okay.
Who knows? Yeah. So hopefully I'm able to share all of that, you know, and for people to relate to every single picture and to get their own perspective of it, you know. So not to promote my page in any way, but like that they I just want to reassure people that when they support me, they're supporting much more people than just me.
Yeah,
so
well, a lot of big stuff coming up, and we're really excited.
Yes.
And, you know, we just want to say a huge thank you to all of our supporters, everybody who's watching
Thank you
this
so
episode.
much.
Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram, and thank you so much for the support, and catch us next time.